Hello everyone, my name is Abi Gatling and welcome to the Creativity Uncovered podcast. And a huge thank you for tuning in to my very first episode of this podcast. I am so excited to have you here. Now, I wanted to focus my first episode today on highlighting exactly what this podcast is about and who I am making it for. So this podcast is all about exploring how different people successfully unlock, unleash, and inspire their creativity. But I really wanted to stress that this podcast is not just for creatives. Sure, some of my listeners will be professionals who work in it day in and day out and are just simply looking for some more inspiration to keep producing. And while this podcast will fulfill that need, I hope, this podcast is in fact for anyone who wants to be more creative in their life. And I mean, not just at work, but at home, in play, in sport, in art, and everything in between. This podcast is really for people who are curious about their creativity and want to inject more of it into their lives. And I really wanted to reiterate that because I hear this a lot and I simply don't believe it. When people say, I'm not creative, I don't believe it, and I challenge you to not believe it as well. Because I believe that people who say that they aren't creative just don't understand what creativity is and how it can be a part of their everyday lives. Look, and that's not a dig at anyone who says that. I fully understand why people do. And I actually thought of it of myself for a long time too. You know, during our lives, we are taught that creativity is art. It's music, it's design, it's dancing, it's writing books. But creativity is so much more than that. I really don't accept that narrow view of what is and what isn't creative, because doing so squashes you. It puts you in a box and it makes you feel like you're just not good enough. You know, throughout my schooling life, I actually studied art and I was pretty good at it. I won some awards and my family were proud of me, and most importantly, I really loved doing it. That was until I got to year 12. I had a change of art teacher, and then I received the very first fail mark of my life. Oh, it devastated me. And I laugh now, but it truly was devastating. It killed my self-esteem and it took away all the self-belief I had in my artistic ability. And because that situation was so poorly managed, I kind of was traumatized by it. It really resulted in me stopping any form of art for at least 10 years after that. It changed my university and my career path. Instead of doing a fine arts degree like I originally intended, I went into teaching instead. And I ended up getting a government job. Then I worked at a university. And along the way, my creativity was really put on the back burner. I truly was focusing on my career. And even though it was successful, I was in middle management, I looked after big teams and even bigger budgets. There was a hole that, quite frankly, was getting me down. I wasn't happy and there was something missing from my life. And after much soul searching, I realized it was that my creative spirit wasn't being fulfilled by my career. And so I started making a conscious effort to fix that. I started trying to find ways to inject fun and creativity into my roles. I interned at night as a social media manager. I taught myself graphic design and started freelancing in my spare time. And soon that spark started coming back. Fast forward a couple of years and then I actually launched my own business. Reflecting on this experience, on how my life went so off track from where I thought it was going to be to where it ended up, it really made me wonder why we have to be good at art to simply do it. Like, why did I reject art completely just because one person didn't like my expression of it? And why did I start telling myself and others that I'm not creative? I realized that I'm probably not the only one who's had that experience. Because if you were to think back, as kids, we were always encouraged to be creative, to dance, to sing, to paint, to draw. It was an everyday part of our life. But somewhere along the line, we stopped that. We somehow bought into the idea that creativity is for the youthful, or the professionals who get paid to do it. And as adults, we now feel like we have to be truly talented to pursue a creative endeavour, or that we need to be purposeful or strategic in our pursuits, or else it's not worth doing. We've forgotten how to do it just because. Now, I believe that everyone has creativity inside them, and you just need to know how to unlock it inside of yourself. So if you feel that you aren't creative, I know that it is in there somewhere hidden away, and I can attest that it's never too late to pick it back up again. So my aim for this podcast is to reach those who have let their creativity drop away, those who believe that they aren't creative, and those who want to do more creative things. I want you to listen to this podcast and then go out there and do it. Be creative. And it just doesn't have to be about doing art or design or singing or the rest of it. Creativity is about seeing the world a little differently. It's about letting go of a fixed mindset, thinking laterally, being innovative, coming up with inventive solutions or new ideas. I believe creativity is about feelings and emotions and a journey and discovery and yes, failure. But creativity is what sets humans apart from animals, and it's also what sets us apart from AI bots. So not only does it broaden our mind and give us new perspectives, it's actually also healthy for you. Just like your 5 a day of fruit and veg, daily creativity can actually make you healthier. It can improve your mood and self-esteem and cognitive function, alleviate stress, but most of all, it's fun. Kids are always being creative and fun. Why wouldn't you want to replicate that in your own lives, right? So how do you do that? There's so many ways. For example, have you ever had a problem that has just niggled you and you can't solve it? Then you give up and you turn your mind to something else, like washing the dishes or walking the dog, and then you get that aha moment and the solution comes right to you. Or sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night with a brilliant idea and you just have to write it down. Or sometimes you might just be watching an inspiring film and suddenly you want to write your own story or start dancing or singing for no reason. These are all ways to help jumpstart your mind into creativity. But for me, the most consistent way for me to break down any creative blocks I have, it's by talking. And that really hit home for me recently. Last year, I was in California visiting my brother Joseph, and we were visiting some theme parks. Because of COVID and border closures, I actually hadn't seen Joe for over 5 years, and there was a lot to catch up on. And if you've ever been to a theme park in the US, you know that you get a lot of time to chat while waiting in line for a ride. So there we were, talking around the world about his career, my business. We were telling jokes, talking about game design, art, music, just like the general drive. And then afterwards, I just felt so creative and excited. I just wanted to get out there and do something. So by the end of that ride, I decided to start this podcast. And I wanted to kickstart this project because this time in the line with my brother wasn't a one-off. I'm always finding myself being creatively inspired by the people around me, and I just want more of that in my life. I want to have more conversations like that because I absolutely love the feeling of being bursting with creative energy. It's good for my happiness, it's good for my soul, it's great for my business. So this podcast not only gives me the opportunity to have these conversations with people who I am just dying to pick their brains, but it also allows me to share them with you in the hope that you also can get a little bit of that same creative energy. So That's what the Creativity Uncovered podcast is all about. It's about sharing some of these conversations with you so that you too are inspired to explore your creativity, or so that you are helped to be moved past any creative blocks that you may come up against in any facet of your life. Thank you so much for tuning in to my very first episode today. I hope that this has given you a little insight into what is to come throughout the season, and that it reassures you that this is a podcast for you, no matter where you are in your creative journey. I look forward to coming back to you with more episodes, bringing you some exciting guests from a range of fields, and helping you discover new ways of inspiring, unlocking, and unleashing your creativity. If you've made it this far, a huge thank you for your support and tuning into today's episode. Creativity Uncovered has been lovingly recorded on the land of the Cubby Cubby people, and we pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. This podcast has been produced by my amazing team here at Crisp Communications, and the music you just heard was composed by Abi Gatling. If you liked this episode, please do share it around and help us on our mission to unlock more creativity in this world. You can also hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any new episode releases.